For 6 years, Elowen had no memory of who she was. She only knew she had awakened broken and pregnant in a shepherd's cottage, and that she would do anything to protect her daughter, Ren. When a cruel lord tried to claim the 5-year-old as payment for debt, Elowen crossed frozen mountains to beg sanctuary from Alpha King Kael Vaer. But inside his throne room, Ren pointed at the crescent and star mark on his wrist. Mama has the same one on her shoulder. Elowen's shawl fell, revealing the matching soul sigil. Someone whispered that the queen had died 6 years ago. Kael descended as if he had seen a ghost. Then he noticed Ren's storm-gray eyes and dropped to his knees. How old is she? When Elowen answered, the Alpha King began to cry. The wife he had buried was alive, and she had returned with the daughter he never knew existed. For the first time in 3 weeks, Elowen could breathe. It did not feel like safety. It felt like the first step into a life that had been waiting 6 years to reclaim her. The East Royal chambers were larger than the cottage. Elowen had called home since the shepherd couple died. A fire burned in a carved stone hearth. Rich tapestries covered the walls, and beyond an arched window, snow-capped mountains stretched beneath a white winter sky. Ren remained unusually quiet until the guards closed the doors. "Is that man going to hurt us?" she asked. Elowen knelt and smoothed dark hair from her daughter's face. "No, I will not let anyone hurt you." He was crying. Everyone cries sometimes. He looked at me like he knew me. Ren chewed her lower lip. Do I know him from before? There had been no remembered before for Ren. She had been born in the shepherd's cottage into Elowen's fractured existence, and had never known a father. Whenever she asked who he was, Elowen could offer only the truth. She remembered nothing before waking beneath the shepherd couple's roof, and she did not know whom she had loved before the fall. Ren had learned to accept that answer, even when her mother woke, screaming from dreams neither of them could understand. "I do not know," Elowen admitted, "but we will learn the truth together." The honesty seemed to comfort Ren more than a false reassurance would have. A knock sounded. Elowen positioned herself between Ren and the door. "Enter." An elderly woman stepped inside carrying a tray of soup, bread, cheese, and warm milk. Silver hair was braided with blue ribbons, and her lined face held more kindness than Elowen had seen since entering the keep. "For the little one," she said, setting down the tray. "And for you, you look half-starved. We are grateful. My name is Helsa. I served the queen before she vanished, and I have delivered most of Silvercrest's children for the last 40 years. Elowen stiffened. "I am not your queen." Helsa studied her without offense. "Perhaps not. A title belongs to the person who chooses to carry it. But the mark on your shoulder is real. What does it mean?" The crescent and star appeared when Kael and Seraphine completed their mate vows. It is not an ordinary birthmark. It is a soul sigil mirrored on both bodies. Elowen glanced at Ren, who had become deeply interested in dipping bread into soup. "If they completed a bond," Elowen said quietly, "why do I remember none of it? Memory can be injured. Magic can be fractured. Neither makes the past unreal." Helsa's gaze gentled, but the past does not give Kael ownership of the woman you are now. He knows that, even if his wolf has not yet learned patience. The mark on Elowen's shoulder pulsed with warmth. Before she could ask more, another knock came. A tall man entered in a dark military coat. He shared Kyle's black hair and broad build, but his eyes were pale blue rather than silver. A signet ring shaped like a wolf's head gleamed on his right hand. He bowed. "Lady Elowen, I am Fenris Vare, Lord Commandant of Silvercrest and the king's cousin." Ren slipped closer to Elowen but did not hide. Fenris noticed and lowered himself to one knee, keeping several feet between them. "You must be Ren. I am told you crossed 3 weeks of winter road without complaining more than the soldiers who escorted the last trade caravan." Ren considered him. "I complained. Mama just kept walking." A warm laugh escaped him. "Then you are more honest than most courtiers." He placed a small carved wooden fox on the table and rose. "Why are you here?" Elowen asked. "To tell you that Lord Varen arrived at the outer gate before sunset. He claims you stole estate property and that Ren is not your daughter by blood." Elowen's stomach dropped. "Those are lies. I believe you." Fenris's expression sharpened with apparent disgust. "Varen has used debt law to fill his household for years. Kyle has summoned him to a formal hearing tomorrow. Why would you help us? Because if you are Seraphine, you are my queen. If you are not, you are still a mother asking protection from a man who wants her child." He inclined his head. "Either reason is enough." His courtesy unsettled Elowen more than open hostility would have. At the door, Fenris paused. "The king has ordered that no one enter these rooms without your permission. If anyone ignores that order, pull the bell cord twice. The guards will come." After he left, Ren picked up the wooden fox. "Do you like him?" Elowen asked. Ren turned the carving in her hands. "I do not know yet. That is a very sensible answer." Ren nodded gravely. "Helsa says sensible people eat their soup before it gets cold." The great hall was crowded when Elowen and Ren entered the following morning. Wolves in human form lined the walls, their attention fixed openly on the woman rumored to have returned from the dead. Kyle sat upon the throne, his expression controlled once more. Fenris stood at his right hand. Before them, Lord Varen of Thornhaven knelt in a coat trimmed with sable, humility arranged across his narrow face like stage paint. "Your Majesty," Varen was saying, "I seek only the lawful return of property stolen from my estate." "My daughter is not property," Elowen said. The crowd parted as she walked forward with Ren. Varen rose and turned toward her. "The woman is confused. She appeared in Thornhaven 6 years ago without memory, family, or proof of identity. The cottage she occupied belonged to my tenants, and its debts passed to her when she claimed their name and land. The cottage was given to me by the people who saved my life, without a witnessed deed." Fenris opened a ledger. "You also claim the child is a bonded ward rather than Lady Elowen's daughter. What evidence supports that allegation?" Varen spread his hands. "She cannot prove she gave birth to the girl." "That is not evidence," Kyle said. Steel entered his voice, and the hall went still. Varen bowed. "Then let us speak only of the debt, with interest and winter penalties. The sum is 75 gold crowns. Under Thornhaven law, an insolvent household may surrender a dependent into bonded service. Under an ordinance abolished in every northern territory 30 years ago," Kyle replied. Thornhaven is not one of your northern territories. No, but you brought your claim into my court and requested my enforcement. That makes its legitimacy my concern." Kyle extended a hand. Fenris passed him the ledger Varen had submitted. "The original cottage debt was 12 silver crowns," Kyle said. "You compounded it every season, charged penalties during years when the roads were closed, and added the cost of repairs made by the tenant herself. You also listed a widow's husband as guarantor, though no husband appears in the village register." Elowin stared at Varen. There had never been a husband. Varen's steward had told villagers that the debt belonged to one. Knowing Elowin could not challenge a history she did not remember. "The document is fraudulent," Fenris said. "The seal belongs to a magistrate who died 8 years before it was supposedly signed." Varen's composure cracked. "A clerical error. A forged claim against a child is not a clerical error," Kyle said. He descended from the throne. "The debt is void. The cottage and surrounding land belong to Elowin by right of continuous residence, and the sworn testimony of 3 Thornhaven elders, whose statements arrived before you did. Wren is her daughter unless lawful evidence proves otherwise. You will withdraw every rider from their village and surrender the forged ledgers for investigation." Varen's mouth tightened. "Your Majesty exceeds his authority." Gold flashed through Kyle's eyes. "Then return to Thornhaven and explain to your people why you refused a royal inquiry into child bondage. The threat lay not in violence, but exposure." Varen bowed stiffly. "As the crown commands." He passed Elowin on his way out. The hatred in his gaze promised that the matter was not finished. Wren watched him leave, then whispered, "The scary man is gone." "For now," Elowin said. A gasp sounded behind them. A young servant carrying a tray had slipped near one of the pillars. His head struck the stone with a sickening crack. He crumpled before the tray finished clattering across the floor. Elowin moved without thought. By the time she reached him, blood was spreading beneath his skull. His breath came shallow and wet. Something inside Elowin opened, the hidden sense she had spent 6 years pretending did not exist. She felt the fracture beneath his hair, the bleeding pressing against his brain, and the life inside him flickering like a candle in wind. "Send for a healer," someone shouted. "The court healer rode south 3 days ago to contain a fever outbreak in the mining villages," another answered. "The pass is blocked, and the junior attendants cannot treat a crushed skull." Elowin's hands hovered above the boy. She had used the gift only in secret, on fevered children, injured animals, and once on a farmer whose scythe had opened his leg to the bone. Every use risked whispers. Every whisper risked a pyre. The boy stopped breathing. "Mama?" Wren's voice trembled. Elowin closed her eyes. "Forgive me," she whispered, though she did not know whether she spoke to Wren, herself, or the mother who had once warned her to hide. Warmth flowed from her chest, down her arms, and into her palms. Golden light spilled between her fingers. Gasps rose through the hall. Elowin ignored them. She guided the light into shattered bone and torn vessels, knitting what had broken and easing the swelling that would have killed the child within minutes. The effort drew strength from her too quickly. Her vision blurred, but she held on until the boy coughed and dragged in a startled breath. His eyes opened. The wound had closed, leaving only smooth pink skin beneath his blood-matted hair. Silence crashed over the hall. Elowen sat back on her heels, shaking. Kyle stood a few steps away. He looked at her not with fear, but with an astonishment so tender that it hurt. "Seraphine," he said, "when we were children, you healed a hawk with a broken wing. You cried because the effort exhausted you, and I swore I would never let you spend yourself that way again." "I do not remember. I know." He approached slowly. "May I touch the mark?" The question mattered. Elowen could not have explained why, only that he had asked when a king might have assumed. She nodded. Kyle's fingers brushed the crescent on her shoulder. Fire tore through her veins. Images struck without order. A dark-haired boy chasing her through summer grass. The same boy, older, fastening a silver chain around her neck. 2 hands joined before moonlit stones. Kyle laughing as she smeared flour across his face. A royal healer pressing a letter into her palm. Snow whipping across a mountain road. The gleam of a wolf-headed ring. A blade wet with silver-black poison. The ground disappearing beneath her feet. Elowen screamed. Her knees failed. Kyle caught her and lowered her carefully instead of pulling her against him. "What did you see?" "A cliff." She struggled for breath. "Someone attacked me." There was silver on the blade. A ring shaped like a wolf's head. Fenris's hand moved reflexively toward his own signet. The gesture was so small that no one appeared to notice except Ren. "Whose face?" Kyle asked. Elowen squeezed her eyes shut, chasing the fragments. "I could not see it, only a smile. Then I was falling. The memory dissolved, leaving terror behind." Kyle looked at the council, clear the hall. No one argued, when only Fenris, Helsa, several guards, and Ren remained. Kyle crouched before Elowen. "I should not have allowed guards to escort you away yesterday without explaining your choices," he said. "Protection that feels like imprisonment is still fear imposed by someone more powerful." "I am sorry." Elowen had expected questions, commands, perhaps demands that she accept his version of the past. The apology left her with no defense prepared. "You believe I am your wife," she said. "I believe you were Seraphine, my mate and queen. I also see that you are Elowen, a woman who survived without me and raised our daughter alone. I will not erase one to recover the other." Ren stepped forward. "Am I truly your daughter?" Kyle's face changed. He lowered himself until they were eye to eye. "I believe you are. But belief is not proof, and you deserve truth rather than court whispers. Silvercrest keeps an ancestral basin that can recognize blood of the ruling line. It requires 1 drop from each of us, nothing more. Only if you and your mother agree." Ren looked at Elowen. Elowen considered the danger of certainty. If Ren was Kyle's daughter, she would become an heir and a target. Yet uncertainty had already placed her in danger. "We agree," she said. The basin was brought from the royal shrine, a shallow bowl carved from moonstone. Kyle cut his thumb first and let 1 drop fall into the water. Silver light spread across the surface. Ren held out her hand without flinching. Helsa pricked her finger. When Ren's blood touched the basin, The silver light rose into a small storm-gray flame. The assembled witnesses bowed. Kyle closed his eyes. For 6 years he had mourned a mate and never known he had also lost. The first years of his child's life, Ren studied him with solemn curiosity. "Does this mean you are my papa?" "Yes," he whispered, "if you will allow me to be." She thought for several heartbeats, then held up the carved fox Fenris had given her. Papas protect their families. They should. "Will you protect Mama from Lord Varen? With everything I have?" Ren nodded. "Then you may try." A broken laugh escaped Kyle. Tears shone in his eyes, but he did not reach for her until Ren stepped forward and put her small arms around his neck. Fenris watched from the edge of the shrine. His smile was gentle. Only Ren noticed that his right hand had closed so tightly around the wolf-headed ring that the metal cut into his palm. The days that followed unsettled Eloin more than open danger would have. Kyle did not demand that she call herself Seraphine. He did not move her into his chambers or announce that the queen had returned. Each morning he asked permission before entering the east rooms, then sat across from her near the fire and offered pieces of the past without insisting that she accept them. "We met when we were 7, he told her on the 4th morning. "Your father brought you to my naming ceremony. You said my ceremonial crown was crooked and climbed onto the dais to fix it." Eloin smiled despite herself. "That sounds terribly rude. It was the first honest thing anyone said to me all day." Ren sat on the carpet between them, arranging wooden animals into 2 armies. Fenris's fox commanded one side. A black wolf carved by Kyle commanded the other. "Who won?" Ren asked. "Your mother," Kyle said. "The battle? Every argument we had until we were 15. "And after 15? Eloin asked. His silver eyes warmed. "I learned to surrender faster." The laugh that escaped her felt both new and remembered. Fragments continued to surface at unexpected moments. The scent of cedar smoke gave her a flash of Kyle, asleep beside a hunting fire. A silver cup in the dining hall reminded her of a winter feast. Once, when his hand brushed hers while passing a book, she remembered standing with him beneath autumn stars while a priestess tied their wrists together with white cord. The memory ended before she saw their faces. She learned that Seraphine had been born to the last known family of moon healers, humans whose gifts had once served both wolf and mortal territories. She had grown up at Silvercrest alongside Kyle. They had married at 22 and completed a mate bond in the Sacred Grove 2 years later. "Completed," Eloin repeated when Helsa explained it. "Then why does everyone speak as though something remains unfinished?" Helsa's mouth tightened. "Because what joined can be wounded. Your bond did not vanish when you fell. It fractured." "How?" "We do not yet know. Ordinary injury cannot tear a soul sigil apart. Something made for that purpose was used against you." Kyle's wolf had gone dormant the moment Seraphine disappeared. He could still force his body to shift, but he no longer heard or felt the wolf as a separate living presence. The physical transformation remained. The instinctive companionship, inner voice, and shared strength had fallen silent. Eloin's wolf spirit had suffered worse. It withdrew so completely that she awoke believing herself human. Their marks remained because the bond still existed beneath the damage. It was not incomplete. It was broken and waiting. Elowen should have found the explanation comforting. Instead, it made the darkness before her memories feel deliberate. One afternoon, Kyle found her alone on the balcony, overlooking the training grounds. Snow drifted between the towers. "Ren is with Helsa," Elowen said before he could ask. "She has decided herb lessons are more interesting than royal etiquette." "She is correct." Kyle stopped several feet away. His restraint had become a constant thing between them, visible in every halted hand and measured breath. "You do not need to stand so far away," Elowen said. His gaze lifted to hers. "My wolf woke after 6 years of silence. He recognizes you. He also has the judgment of a starving animal. Distance helps me remember that recognition is not permission." Something inside her softened. "Were we happy?" she asked. Kyle looked toward the mountains. "Not always. We argued. You hated court ceremonies. I believed every problem could be solved by giving an order, and was repeatedly offended when you proved otherwise." "That sounds believable, but yes, we were happy." His voice lowered. "The morning you left for the Southern Hospice, you told me you had news but wanted to give it to me. In person when you returned, I never learned what it was." Elowen touched the moon mark beneath her dress, the intercepted letter in her memory. The royal healer, a hand resting unconsciously over her stomach. "I think I knew I was carrying Ren." Pain crossed his face. "Then someone else knew before I did." Neither said Fenris's name. The wolf-headed ring was a clue, not proof. Several members of House Veyr wore similar signets, and copies existed among senior officers. That evening, Fenris joined them for dinner. He entertained Ren with stories of Kyle's childhood, and gently corrected a servant who addressed Elowen as Queen, after she had asked to be called by her chosen name. "You are good at making people trust you," Elowen observed when Ren went with Helsa to prepare for bed. Fenris smiled. "That is a suspicious way to describe courtesy." "Suspicion kept my daughter alive." "Then keep it." He lifted his wine cup. "A court is more dangerous than a winter road, precisely because its predators know how to bow." The warning sounded sincere. It also sounded practiced. Later that night, Elowen woke to a burning warmth spreading across her shoulder. The room was dark except for banked firelight. Someone stood beside the bed. Before she could move, fingers pressed a cold, damp substance against the soul sigil beneath her nightdress. Silver-black pain cut through the mark and drove needles behind her eyes. A newly recovered memory, the royal healer placing a letter in her hand, flickered and began to dissolve. Elowen gasped. The figure held the pressure for another heartbeat, as though trying to force the darkness deeper. "Who is there?" The inner chamber door opened. Ren stood clutching her blanket. The intruder turned toward the child. Firelight caught a wolf-headed ring. Then the figure slipped behind the tapestry and vanished through the narrow servants' passage concealed in the wall. Guards arrived seconds after Elowen pulled the bell cord twice. Kyle came behind them barefoot, wearing only trousers and an open shirt, his eyes blazing gold. "Were you hurt?" Someone touched the mark. One of the memories I recovered started disappearing. Helsa arrived moments later with her healing satchel. She examined the reddened skin around the soul sigil. and scraped a trace of silver-black residue onto a glass slide. This was no attempt to kill her quickly, she said. Whoever entered was trying to reopen the fracture, suppress her wolf, and bury the memories that have begun to return. Another few seconds might have pushed her back into the darkness she woke from 6 years ago. Kyle searched the chamber himself, then questioned the 2 guards stationed outside. Both swore no one had passed them. A narrow servants' panel behind a tapestry stood slightly open. Wren clung to Elowen's waist. "Did you see his face?" Kyle asked her gently. "Not all of it. Anything you remember may help." Wren looked toward the open panel. He wore the same ring as the fox man. Kyle became very still. "Fenris, maybe." Wren frowned. The fire made everything strange, but he smelled like the cold oil soldiers use on swords. Kyle ordered Fenris's rooms and private study sealed before dawn. The visible rooms had been stripped of anything incriminating, but behind a false panel in the study wall, the guards found a warded iron strongbox. Its lock bore the old Vare crest and opened only when Kyle pressed his royal signet against it. Inside lay Seraphine's travel route, coded payment records from Lord Varin, the original letter from the royal healer, and a narrow glass vial stained with the same silver-black residue Helsa had removed from Elowen's soul sigil. "Your Majesty," the intercepted letter began, "Queen Seraphine carries your child. She wishes to tell you herself upon her return from the Southern Hospice." Fenris had kept the evidence not from carelessness, but as leverage. The letter proved Wren's place in the succession, while the coded payments could be used to control Varin if their alliance ever failed. Helsa examined the vial and went pale. "Moonbane," she said, "an outlawed poison created during the old succession wars. It does not merely weaken a wolf. Mixed with blood from both mates, it can fracture a completed bond." She tilted the vial beneath the light. The Royal Infirmary once kept sealed blood samples from both members of the ruling pair for emergency healing sigils. After the Red Pass campaign, Fenris supervised those stores while Kyle recovered from a deep wound. He did not need to take Seraphine's blood during the ambush. He had access to both samples and could have removed them years before anyone suspected. He had reason to do so. The truth assembled itself with brutal clarity. Fenris had begun preparing before Seraphine ever became pregnant. Once he intercepted the healer's letter and learned that an heir was coming, he arranged the mountain ambush and used Moonbane, made from both mates' blood, to tear at the bond before pushing Seraphine from the cliff. The poison made Kale feel her disappear. It suppressed Seraphine's wolf and shattered her memory. Lord Varin had found her years later in Thornhaven, recognized the moon mark from Fenris's description, and kept her trapped beneath a false debt while confirming her identity. When Elowen fled to Silvercrest, Varin sent word ahead. "He knew I was alive for years," Elowen whispered. He watched Wren grow and waited. Kyle stood at the window with both hands braced against the stone. His body shook with controlled rage. Fenris fled through the western gate before the order reached it, a guard reported. 2 captains and 12 soldiers went with him. "Where would he go?" Elowen asked. Kyle looked toward the distant borderlands. "To Varin. They have prepared for this longer than we understood." "Then Wren is still in danger." "Yes." Kyle turned from the window. I will move both of you to the inner keep. Every entrance will be guarded by wolves whose loyalty I have tested personally." Elowin's fear sharpened into anger. "I will not spend another 6 years locked in a room while men decide what happens to me. That is not what I am asking. It is what protection becomes when the protected person has no voice." Kyle absorbed the blow without defensiveness. "Then tell me what you need." The question steadied her. "I need to learn what Fenris did to me. I need to control the power I used in the hall. And I need to know how to protect Ren if your guards fail." Kyle nodded. "Helsa will teach you healing control. I will teach you the laws and defenses of Silvercrest. And one of my captains will teach you how to use a knife." "You?" A faint, sad smile touched his mouth. "My wolf becomes distracted when you stand too close. I would prefer your first lesson not end with the Alpha King being stabbed by his own mate." Despite everything, Elowin laughed. The sound startled them both. For 6 days, Silvercrest prepared for war. Scouts tracked Fenris east toward Thornhaven. Messengers rode to the ranked houses, carrying proof of treason and orders to withhold support from the fugitive commandant. Elowin trained with Helsa each morning, learning to direct healing without emptying herself into every wound. In the afternoons, a scarred female captain named Mara taught her how to break a wrist hold, where to strike an armored man, and how to keep Ren behind her without trapping the child between danger and a wall. Kyle spent his nights in council and his mornings with Ren. He did not try to reclaim 6 lost years in a week. He learned how she preferred honey in her porridge, that she hated tight braids, and that she could not sleep without the faded blanket the shepherd's wife had sewn for her. Ren learned that her father disliked sweet wine, could carve almost any animal from wood, and became helpless when she asked direct questions in front of counselors. "Why do people bow to you?" she asked at breakfast. "Because I am king." "Do you bow to anyone?" Kyle looked at Elowin. "When I am wise enough." Elowin nearly choked on her tea. The fragile peace ended on the 7th night. 3 horn blasts sounded from the eastern wall. Kale rose from the supper table before the final note faded. "Border attack," he said. He called for armor, kissed Ren's forehead only after glancing at Elowin for permission, and stopped at the door. "The inner keep is the safest place in Silvercrest." "Go," Elowin told him. "We know the plan." His gaze held hers for one breath too long. Then he left. The attack at the eastern border was a diversion. Near midnight, Helsa burst into the inner chamber, her gray robe streaked with blood. Fenris used the old burial tunnels. His men are inside the lower keep. Elowin seized the knife Mara had given her. "Where is Kyle?" Returning from the wall, they met him in the north courtyard with silver-tipped arrows. Coated in moonbane, the fractured bond convulsed inside Elowin. Pain tore through her chest so violently that she nearly fell. "He is alive," Helsa said quickly, "but badly wounded." Elowin lifted Ren into her arms and followed Helsa through corridors was filled with smoke, shouts, and the metallic scent of blood. Loyal guards formed a moving shield around them. Kyle's chambers had become an infirmary. Injured warriors lined the walls. At the center of the room, Kyle lay on the bed with 3 arrow wounds across his chest and side. The shafts had been removed, but silver-black veins spread from each puncture. His eyes opened when Elowen approached. "You should not be here. You have said that before." "It remains unhelpful." She pressed both hands over the worst wound. Moonbane crawled beneath his skin. The poison recognized the damaged bond and pulled at it, widening the fracture that already separated them. Helsa gripped Elowen's shoulder. "If you draw it into yourself, the broken bond may turn your own magic against you. Then show me another way. There is no time." Kael's fingers closed weakly around Elowen's wrist. "Do not trade your life for mine." "I am not trading anything. I am choosing to fight." Golden light emerged slowly from her palms. The moonbane resisted. It wound through Kael's blood like living wire, cutting her each time she tried to separate poison from flesh. Elowen changed her approach. Rather than pulling the darkness into herself, she surrounded it with healing light and forced it toward the open wounds. Kael's body arched. The bond opened without warning. His pain crashed through her. Beneath it lay his fear, not of death, but of leaving Ren fatherless and Elowen alone with another grave. Silver energy answered her gold. It did not control her. It offered itself. Elowen accepted. White gold light filled the chamber. The poison flowed out through the wounds and crystallized into black ash across her hands. One arrow wound closed, then another. Kael's breathing steadied, but the fractured bond could not carry so much power cleanly. A line of agony split through Elowen's mind. She heard Ren scream for her. She felt Helsa trying to pull her away. Then the room vanished. Darkness received her without sound. For a time, Elowen drifted through nothing. Voices reached her from far away. Ren's tearful prayers, Kael begging her to return. Helsa chanting words older than the keep. Then golden eyes opened in the dark. A silver-white wolf stepped toward her. "You are not dying because you healed him," the wolf said without moving its mouth. "You are dying because Moonbane taught your soul to remain divided." "Who are you?" "The part of you Fenris could not kill." Memories moved beneath the wolf's fur. Seraphine running beside Kael under a summer moon. Seraphine placing a hand over her newly pregnant belly. Seraphine waking in a shepherd's cottage, unable to remember her own name. "Your mind became Elowen because Elowen was what survival required," the wolf said. Seraphine did not disappear. "I carried her where the poison could not reach." "Do I have to become her again?" "No." The answer came instantly. You do not heal a broken bone by discarding the life that grew around it. You join what was separated. Seraphine's memories, Elowen's choices, the healer, the mother, the wolf, all belong to you. And Kael, he is not the price of becoming whole. The old bond may be renewed or allowed to fade after the poison is gone. That choice will remain yours. Relief moved through Elowen so sharply that it became grief. For 6 years, every choice had been made beneath threat. Run or lose Ren, hide or burn, heal or watch someone die. Even love had begun to feel like another fate closing around her. The wolf lowered its head. "Choose yourself first." Elowen thought of Ren waiting beyond the dark. She thought of Kael asking before he touched her mark, apologizing when protection became imprisonment, and learning the shape of his daughter one small preference at a time. She thought of the woman she had been and the woman she had built from ruin. I choose all of me. The wolf pressed its muzzle to her heart. Then wake. Light exploded through the darkness. Elowyn opened her eyes with a gasp. Kyle sat beside the bed, healed but pale, one hand wrapped around hers. Ren slept curled against his side. Helsa stood nearby with tears on her lined face. "Elowyn," Kyle whispered. "Both," she said weakly. "I am Elowyn. I was Seraphine. Neither name erases the other." Kyle bowed his head over her hand. "Then both are welcome." Something warm moved at the edge of her mind. Her wolf, awake and separate from the fractured bond, stretched inside her with quiet strength. "Fenris?" Elowyn asked. Kyle's expression hardened. "He escaped before the tunnels collapsed, but he left a formal challenge with 3 ranked house seals." Helsa handed Elowyn a black parchment. "Under an ancient law of Silver Crest, a member of royal blood supported by 3 ruling houses could challenge an alpha declared too weakened to defend the pack. Refusal meant abdication. Acceptance required a public blood duel at the next full moon." The 3 seals also granted temporary safe conduct to the challenger and the witnesses named beneath them from sunrise until the duel ended. Arresting Fenris before the appointed hour would make Kyle the violator of the same law and give the supporting houses legal grounds to abandon Silvercrest. "He tried to murder you," Elowyn said. "Why honor his challenge?" "Because he planned beyond murder. 3 houses claim the evidence against him was forged after I found a woman who resembles my dead queen. If I refuse, they will split from Silvercrest and take nearly 1/3 of the border warriors with them. Civil war would follow, and the duel must be fought with unpoisoned steel. No silver, no outside interference. The Moon Marshal will inspect both weapons and stop the fight if either man violates the right." Elowyn looked at the healing wounds across Kyle's chest. "When is the full moon?" 7 nights. He was alive, but Moonbane had left weakness in every movement. Fenris had chosen his timing perfectly. The 7 days before the blood duel became a contest between recovery and time. Kyle trained only enough to keep his muscles from stiffening. Helsa forbade him from shifting until the morning of the duel. Mara drilled Elowyn in the forms of the wolf, teaching her to recognize the moment instinct became panic, and the moment panic could become power. Elowyn could feel her wolf now, but a full transformation remained beyond reach. Her fingernails sharpened once. Her hearing expanded until every heartbeat in the practice yard thundered in her skull. Twice, silver-white fur appeared along her forearms before vanishing. "You are trying to command the shift," Helsa said. "A wolf is not a servant. Then what does it want? The same thing you do. A reason to trust that coming forward will not make it a prisoner again." Elowyn stopped treating transformation as a weapon she had to master before the duel. Instead, she learned to breathe with the presence inside her, to let it see through her eyes and feel the snow beneath her feet. Ren watched every lesson from a safe distance. "Will I have a wolf?" she asked one afternoon. "Perhaps," Elowyn said. "Your father's blood is strong, and mine is apparently more complicated than anyone told me. Can I bite Lord Varen if I do?" "No." Fenris, also no. Ren sighed. "Wolves have too many rules." The night before the duel, Kael found Eloin in the old shrine where the ancestral basin still held a faint storm-gray glow from Ren's blood. "You should be sleeping," he said. "So should you." He stood beside her, close but not touching. "If I fall tomorrow, Mara will take you and Ren through the Western Pass. Helsa has documents and gold prepared. You are planning your death again. I am planning for your survival." Eloin turned to face him. Those are not always the same thing. The fractured bond pulsed between them, no longer draining either of them, but still tender and incomplete in its healing. Through it, she felt how frightened he was. "I cannot promise I will stay outside the arena if Fenris breaks the rules," she said. "If he breaks the right, the duel ends. You would have every right to defend yourself or Ren. And you? I am asking you not to enter while it remains a lawful challenge. Not because I doubt your courage, but because Fenris wants my victory questioned. If you interfere before he violates the right, his allies will call it proof that I cannot stand alone." Eloin hated the logic because it was sound. "Then do not make me watch you die honorably." Kael lifted one hand. "May I?" She leaned into his palm. He kissed her softly, without claim or urgency. The touch carried no demand that she remember the man she had once married. It was a promise offered to the woman standing before him now. "Come back to me," she whispered. "I will spend every breath trying." Morning dawned beneath a white full moon still visible above the mountains. The dueling grounds lay in a natural amphitheater behind Silvercrest Keep. Ranked houses filled the stone terraces. 3 banners stood behind Fenris, houses Draven, Corel, and Blackmere, their leaders bound by ambition, fear, or gold. Lord Varen sat among them in a fur-lined coat, smug certainty on his face. Ren remained beside Helsa and 6 royal guards. Eloin stood at the edge of the marked circle, close enough to see every bruise that still shadowed Kael's ribs. The Moon Marshal entered carrying 2 plain steel swords. He inspected each blade before the crowd, washed them in salt water, and cut his own palm across both edges to prove they carried no silver or poison. "The old law recognizes this challenge," he announced. "It also binds those who invoke it. No hidden weapon, no poison, no silver, no attack upon spectators. No warrior may enter the circle unless the right is broken. Violation ends the challenge and marks the offender traitor before every house assembled." Fenris smiled as though the words amused him. Kael faced his cousin across the frozen ground. "Fenris Vare," he said, his voice carrying through the amphitheater, "you stand accused of conspiring to murder Queen Seraphine, fracturing a sacred bond with Moonbane, concealing the birth of the royal heir, forging debt claims, and attacking Silvercrest Keep. Do you deny these acts?" "I deny your right to judge them," Fenris replied. "You allowed love to cripple your wolf. You searched 6 years for a dead woman while our borders weakened. Now you place a memoryless healer and a child above the survival of the pack. You call ambition survival because the truth is uglier." The Moon Marshal raised his hand. The duel began. Fenris struck first. Steel rang against steel. They had trained together since childhood and knew each other's habits too well. Fenris attacked in fast, efficient combinations, designed to exhaust rather than overwhelm. Kael defended with patience, turning each blow aside and refusing to waste movement. For the first several exchanges, they appeared evenly matched. Then Kyle healing body began to betray him. His breath shortened, his left arm slowed. A cut opened along his shoulder, then another across his ribs. Neither wound was deep, but blood darkened his skin and steam rose into the winter air. Elowyn's wolf paced beneath her bones. "Stay," she told it. "Not yet." Fenris drove Kyle backward. "Look at him," Lord Varen called from the terraces. "Silvercrest kneels to a broken king." Wren stood abruptly. "My papa is not broken." Several wolves laughed, but the sound held affection rather than mockery. Kyle heard her. He caught Fenris's next strike, twisted, and sent his cousin's sword skidding across the ground. A roar rose from the loyal houses. Fenris staggered, then smiled. He pressed his thumb against the wolf-headed ring on his hand. A narrow silver spike sprang from inside the signet and drove into Kyle's forearm. Black veins appeared instantly. The Moon Marshal stepped between them. "Violation! The challenge is ended. Fenris Vare stands." Fenris seized the fallen sword and drove it through the Marshal's chest. Chaos erupted. Stone panels opened in the upper service galleries. Passages Fenris had controlled for years as Lord Commandant. Varen's hired crossbowmen stepped from the shadows with compact weapons already loaded, having entered before dawn under forged maintenance orders. At the same time, Fenris's personal soldiers drew concealed blades from beneath their ceremonial coats. The leaders of houses Draven, Coral, and Blackmere remained frozen, realizing too late that the lawful challenge they had supported had been designed as cover for an execution. One of Varen's crossbowmen aimed not at Kyle, but at Wren. The right was broken. Elowyn did not think. Her wolf came forward because there was no longer anything inside her asking it to remain hidden. The transformation struck like moonlight through shattered glass. Bones shifted, muscles remade themselves, and the world opened into scent and sound. Pain existed, but it did not feel like destruction. It felt like a locked door finally giving way. Where Elowyn had stood, a silver-white wolf landed in the snow. She was larger than any ordinary female shifter, her fur bright as frost and her eyes burning gold. The crossbowman fired. Elowyn crossed the distance in 3 bounds and struck the bolt from the air with one paw. It shattered against the stone. She landed between Wren and the terraces with a growl that silenced the nearest rebels. "Mama!" Wren cried from behind the royal guards. Even through the chaos, Elowyn recognized her daughter's voice. She looked back once and met Wren's frightened gray eyes. Elowyn lowered her body into a protective stance, trying to communicate safety through posture and instinct, then turned toward the arena. Kyle had fallen to one knee. Moonbane spread from the wound in his arm, but he was still fighting. Fenris lifted the sword for a killing strike. Elowyn slammed into him from the side. He struck the ground hard enough to lose the blade. "Impossible," Fenris gasped. "The poison buried your wolf." "It did not kill me," Elowyn answered through the ancient mind speech of shifters. "Neither did you." Kyle's wolf rose in response to hers. He shifted despite the poison, becoming a massive black wolf streaked with silver along the chest and muzzle. He moved to Elowyn's side, unsteady but alive. "Together?" he asked. Together, she replied, but not because we are halves, because we both choose to stand. Fenris shifted into a gray wolf and lunged toward Ren, abandoning every pretense of honor. Kyle intercepted him. The two males crashed across the snow. Fenris tore at Kyle's wounded foreleg, but Elowin seized the traitor's flank and dragged him away. Kyle regained his footing. Fenris looked toward the rebel terraces for help. Lord Draven raised his voice first and ordered every warrior beneath his banner to stand down. Coral and Blackmere followed. They had supported a lawful challenger, not an executioner who murdered the Moon Marshal and turned hired archers upon a child. Fenris stood alone. He attacked Kyle one final time. Kyle met him in the center of the circle. Their jaws closed, bodies twisted, and the struggle ended with Fenris pinned beneath the Alpha King's weight. "Yield," Kyle commanded. Fenris's eyes found Elowin. Hatred replaced fear. Pinned and desperate, he convulsed partially back toward human form. One clawed hand tore a second silver spike from the clasp at his throat and drove it toward Kyle's neck. Elowin struck his forearm aside before the point could land. Kyle's jaws closed around Fenris's throat. The traitor went still. For several breaths, no one moved. Then the leaders of the three rebel houses descended into the arena and knelt before the dead Moon Marshal. "We witnessed the violation," Lord Draven said. "The challenge was lawful. Fenris's actions were not. Silvercrest has one alpha." Across the terraces, wolves lowered themselves in waves. They did not kneel because a spectacle had frightened them. They knelt because the law had been witnessed, broken, and defended before them all. Lord Varen attempted to slip through the rear passage. Ren pointed. "The scary man is running." Mara smiled without humor. Not far. Guards caught him before he reached the outer gate. There was no celebration that night. The Moon Marshal had died defending a law Fenris treated as a weapon. Loyal soldiers and rebels alike carried wounds. Kyle required hours of healing before the Moonbane left his blood, and Elowin's first shift left every muscle trembling with exhaustion. They spent the night in the infirmary rather than the sacred grove. Ren slept between them on a narrow cot, one hand tangled in Elowin's hair and the other wrapped around Kale's finger. "I imagined our reunion 1,000 ways," Kyle murmured in the pre-dawn dark. "None involved our daughter taking most of the bed. She does that. I have much to learn." Elowin looked at him over Ren's sleeping head. "The bond feels different. Your wolf is awake. The Moonbane is gone from you, but the fracture remains." Yes, there was no desperation in his answer, no attempt to turn survival into obligation. "The old bond can be renewed," he said. "Helsa believes the rite would restore what the poison damaged. It may also return some memories. And if I choose not to renew it?" Pain moved through him, but he did not hide behind a lie. "Then I will grieve what cannot be restored and remain grateful that you and Ren are alive. I will still protect you. I will still be her father. I will not use the crown to bind you to me." Elowin studied the man she had once loved and the man she was learning to love now. "I am not ready tonight," Kyle nodded. "Then tonight we sleep." Ren opened one eye. "You talk too much." For the first time since the duel, they laughed. The trials began 12 days later. Because Thornhaven owed fealty to Silvercrest, the Crown had authority over Varen's treason, forged cross-border claims, and use of children as bonded property, even though ordinary village disputes remained locally governed. Lord Varen's seized ledgers proved that he had trapped dozens of families beneath fabricated debt, taking sons into mines and daughters into household service. Letters between him and Fenris confirmed that he recognized Elowin's moonmark 4 years earlier. Fenris had ordered Varin to keep her alive and contained until Ren's bloodline could be confirmed. If Elowin truly died, the final rupture of the fractured mate bond might reach Kyle and reveal that Seraphine had survived the mountain attack. Varen therefore trapped her beneath fabricated debt, watched Ren for signs of Vaer blood, and waited. As Ren approached 6, the age when young shifters sometimes displayed their first inherited traits, Varin escalated the debt claim and attempted to seize her as a bonded ward. When Elowin fled, he warned Fenris and followed her to Silvercrest under the pretense of collecting payment. The 3 houses that had supported the blood challenge surrendered their correspondence and paid restitution to the families harmed in the attack. Their leaders lost voting rights for 5 years, but avoided execution because they had refused Fenris after he broke the right and turned his weapon toward Ren. Varen was stripped of title and estate. The forged debts were abolished, his bonded workers freed, and the land he had seized returned to the families who had worked it. He was sentenced to life imprisonment in the northern fortress. His seized wealth was placed in a restitution fund for the families he had exploited. Kyle ordered that Varen receive no privilege of rank, but also no beating, starvation, forced labor, or sale. Mercy, Varen spat at sentencing. Law, Elowin answered. You do not become less guilty because we refuse to become you. The recovered Moonbane records revealed a wider network of alchemists who had sold severing poisons to ambitious houses. Kyle sent copies to every allied territory and placed the surviving vials beneath Helsa's control, so healers could create an antidote. Elowin did not reclaim a crown immediately. For 6 weeks, she learned the life Seraphine had left and allowed Elowin to decide what should return. She studied Silvercrest law, visited the kitchens and servants' quarters, and listened to families freed from Varen's contracts. She shifted beneath Helsa's guidance until the silver-white wolf no longer emerged only in fear. Some memories returned without warning. She remembered Kyle teaching her to ride and falling into a river when the horse objected. She remembered Fenris standing beside them during their first mating ceremony, smiling while the priestess tied white cord around their wrists. She remembered hiding the pregnancy letter in her cloak because she wanted to see Kyle's face when she told him. Other years remained lost. Kyle never treated the missing pieces as debts she owed him. He courted her again, not with jewels or royal proclamations, but with walks through the snow, quiet meals after council, and evenings spent helping Ren learn her letters. He asked before touching her. He listened when Elowin challenged him. Once, when he attempted to solve a disagreement by saying, "I am still the Alpha King," she reminded him that his crown had been crooked at 7 and could become crooked again. Ren declared Elowin the winner. The question of the crown came before the question of the bond. Silvercrest's council gathered in the same throne room where Ren had first revealed the moon mark. The second throne remained empty. An old counselor rose. Seraphine Vere was crowned queen before her disappearance. By law, the title was never revoked. Elowen stood before them in a simple dark blue gown, the crescent mark uncovered. "A title may survive 6 years," she said. "A ruler cannot return unchanged and pretend no time has passed. I will not sit beside Kael because a mark proves I once did." Murmurs moved through the chamber. "Then what do you require?" the counselor asked. "A choice from the people affected by my rule, and changes that prevent another Lord Varen from using poverty as ownership. No child may be pledged for debt. No servant may be held without wages and the right to leave. Human healers may enter wolf territory without being registered as weapons. And the lowest ranked wolves will have a representative in council." Several nobles objected at once. Elowen listened. She answered questions, adjusted language where it improved the law, and refused every attempt to remove its purpose. Kael did not speak for her. He sat beside the empty throne and let the council address her directly. The vote passed by a clear majority. Representatives from the villages, household workers, healers, soldiers, and ranked houses assembled in the courtyard 3 days later. They were not asked to worship a returned queen. They were asked whether Elowen Seraphine Vere had earned the right to resume the office. The answer rose in one united howl. At the coronation, Ren fastened Seraphine's moonstone pendant around Elowen's neck. "Do I have to call you Queen Mama now?" she whispered. "Only if you want to lose dessert." Ren grinned. "Mama is better." Kyle waited at the foot of the throne steps rather than above them. "Do you still choose this?" he asked. Elowen looked across the courtyard at people who knew both the story of the lost queen and the work of the woman who returned. "Yes," she said. "Not because I was born for this, because I know what happens when rulers forget the lives beneath their laws." He offered his hand. She took it and climbed beside him. The renewal rite took place 1 month later. Elowen chose the sacred grove not because tradition demanded it, but because the first ceremony she remembered there belonged to a younger woman whose consent she wanted to honor rather than replace. Ancient stones formed a circle beneath the spring moon. No court attended. Helsa waited beyond the trees with Ren, close enough to help if the fractured magic became dangerous and far enough to give them privacy. Kyle stood across from Elowen in a plain black shirt, his crown left at the keep. "The first vow remains real," Helsa had explained. "This rite does not create a bond. It asks whether 2 changed people choose to reopen what violence forced closed." Kyle held out his hands but did not cross the space between them. "Elowen," he said, deliberately using the name she had chosen in the life he did not share. "I loved Seraphine. I mourned her, but I do not ask you to become the memory I kept. I choose the woman who crossed mountains for her child, challenged my laws, and became whole without needing me to complete her." Elowen's eyes burned. "Kyle, I remember loving you, but memory is not the reason I stand here. I choose the man who learned that protection without choice can become another cage. I choose Ren's father. I choose the king who allowed me to question whether he deserved his crown." A faint smile touched his mouth. "Frequently. You require frequent supervision." His laugh moved through the grove, warm and alive. Elowyn stepped forward and placed her palm over the mark on his wrist. Kyle touched the crescent on her shoulder. Silver and gold light rose around them. The fractured bond appeared in her mind as a bright cord scarred by dark breaks. The moonbane was gone. What remained was not poison, but the memory of injury. She could close the distance. She could also step away. Elowyn chose forward. Their wolves emerged beside them in spirit, his black and silver, hers silver white and gold. They circled once, amasmais, toned, then touched foreheads. The breaks in the bond filled with light. Memories returned, not every lost hour, and not in perfect order. Enough. Their first kiss in a summer meadow. Their old ceremony beneath autumn stars. Kyle's stunned joy the day she first called him husband. Fenris's hand on her back at the cliff. The fall, the shepherd's wife holding water to her lips. Wren's first cry. Elowyn did not disappear beneath Seraphine's past. She carried it. When she opened her eyes, Kyle was crying. "I remember you," she whispered, "and I still choose you now." He touched his forehead to hers. "Welcome home, my heart. I was home with Wren before I found you." Kyle smiled through his tears. "Then thank you for making room for me." They renewed the old mating bites only after the fractured magic had settled. The crescent and star soul sigils already glowed upon their skin, proof that their first vows had never truly vanished. Elowyn offered the place where Kyle had marked her years before. His bite was careful, a promise rather than possession. Then he lowered his head and exposed his own throat. Elowyn marked him in return. The restored bond opened between them with warmth, not conquest. They could feel one another, but neither mind swallowed the other. Each presence remained distinct, connected by a door both could close when privacy was needed. From beyond the trees came a loud whisper. "Are they finished yet?" Helsa answered, equally loudly, "Princesses who spy on sacred rites lose breakfast pastries." Wren emerged from behind an oak. "I was not spying. I was checking whether Papa cried." Kyle wiped his face. "Your mother had something in her eye." "Both eyes?" Elowyn laughed and opened her arms. Wren ran into them. Dawn found the three of them walking back toward Silvercrest Keep. The mountains glowed rose and gold. Below, the villages once controlled by Varin were waking to their first spring without bonded children. In the keep, counselors waited to argue over the new sanctuary for healers, and servants were preparing a breakfast Wren had already attempted to redesign. "What happens now?" Elowyn asked. Kyle took her hand. "Now we live. We raise our daughter. We repair what can be repaired. We accept that some memories may never return. And when we disagree, I surrender immediately." "Liar! I surrender after a dignified resistance." Wren skipped between them. "Can I become a wolf when I am older?" "Perhaps," Kyle said. "Can I bite people who are mean?" "No," Elowyn and Kale answered together. Wren sighed. Too many rules. Silvercrest. Keep rose before them, no longer a monument to a life Elowyn could not remember, but a home she had consciously chosen to help rebuild. She had arrived at its gates as a nameless seamstress begging a king to protect her child. She returned now as Elowyn and Seraphine, healer and wolf, mother and queen, not restored to the woman she had been, but made whole by accepting every woman she had become. Kayel's presence warmed the bond beside her, never above her and never within without welcome. Ren's laughter carried across the snow. Together, they walked into the future that violence had tried to steal and choice had finally returned.